Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we're here with another episode of Bedrock and Balderstone to talk about Doctor Who Series 11. We are going to do 2 episodes at once because we had some issues connecting the podcasts in the past couple of weeks, I'd say, overall for all of the podcast things that we do. And so we fell behind, which with Doctor Who, when it's actually airing, is really stressful because then suddenly we have to watch 3 episodes or 2 episodes or however many it is just to catch up. So we're doing these just in the nick of time before tomorrow so that we don't have 3 to watch.
Yeah. It's like the one timely thing we review and we're completely off track.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But we're doing the Tsuranga Conundrum and Demons of the Punjab this evening. So these are the 5th and 6th episode of the season, I think.
Now you put me on the spot.
Well, I got it right here. 5th and 6th. I don't need you. I can do the show on my own.
Yeah, fine.
So basically, well, I guess we'll tackle Tsuranga Conundrum first because that's the one that aired first. This one's kind of an odd setup. Basically, I forget what they were looking for, but they go to some junk planet to find something that the Doctor wanted for some reason. It was something...
I just assumed they were looking for spare TARDIS parts or something, but okay. I don't know that they ever established that.
And they happen upon a sonic mine, which goes off, and then they end up in like a medic room on a ship that's shuttling them to safety. But the shuttle gets attacked by a patang, which is a kind of a very cute and cuddly creature that eats metal and feasts on energy, but doesn't eat human meat or anything like that, but it ends up killing people because it eats their spaceship. And then, and so there's this situation that arises on the medic ship where number one, there's this creature eating through it, but then I think that the security systems on the automated ship interpret that as a hijacking or something, so it starts setting off a bomb. If I recall,
no, it was actually the hospital planet they were going to was going to remotely detonate them.
Is that it? Okay.
The situation. It's a very paranoid hospital, I guess. And they thought, if there's a problem on your ship, we're going to blow you up.
And so then they have to deal with the bomb, which we'll get into how they deal with that. And there's also all these other character things going on. There's a guy who's pregnant who doesn't really want to be a dad. He's from like an alien race where it looks like both sexes give birth, and then there's a pilot, or not a pilot, a general who's also a pilot, who's this great like historical figure. What was her name? Eve Cicero, right?
Yeah, Eve Cicero.
And her brother Dirkus is also there, and he's just like an engineer. And so, there's all this stuff going on with them that's kind of important, especially with the Eve Cicero character, because they eventually have to use her to pilot the shuttle, and she has some kind of heart condition they call pilot's heart that makes it different. And does she have that because the way that they pilot the ships is they're using human energy to do
it? They never really clarify it, to what I can say. I mean, it's kind of assumed.
Okay.
I gotta say, I was kind of like, it's like early on in the movie, we think she's got one kind of illness, but she's really got another kind of, she's got one kind of fictional illness we've never heard of. But the shocking revelation, she's got a different kind of fictional illness we've never heard of. It's like, okay.
So that's the basic premise of the story. Adam, what did you think of this episode?
I gotta say, this has been my least favorite episode of the season.
Yeah.
It's too all over the place. I mean, you've got Eve and her brother Dirkus. Eve doesn't respect her brother Dirkus, and Dirkus doesn't like her robot. And Mobley, who's like the I guess second in charge on the ship, has to take over, but she's meek and doesn't have a lot of confidence. And then you've got the pregnant guy, and it's like everyone's got this life lesson they need to learn on top of there being the alien threat. And it's like, and there's so little time given to any plot.
Yeah.
And on top of that, every single one of these plots resolves in the most predictable. If you were 10 seconds into the beginning of the plot, if you were to guess how it's going to end, that's what happened.
I think this is the worst episode of the season, possibly one of the worst episodes I've seen in a long time. I think it was bad. I think this was a bad episode. I think it was bad because it doesn't give the viewer enough credit. It's like I don't watch this show to be soothed. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's what it was doing. I feel like it was just an episode that was there to soothe me and tell me humans are good or something. And I didn't need that. It felt like watching Punky Brewster. I was kind of getting irritated. And I also was irritated because I thought they were wasting really interesting, good characters. Eve Cicero was a really good character. The actress who played her had a way of carrying herself that really made it work for me. And then they threw on this lethal illness so that she has to sacrifice herself, and it just was like I didn't need that. I would have liked it better if they made her a little bit of a jerk. Do you know what I mean? Like that would have made her.
Well, she was kind of a jerk.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I would have preferred that like I came away at the end of the episode not knowing if I really like her or not. Do you know what I mean?
Instead of giving her a total heroic redemption kind of thing.
Because she's this great historical figure, so you kind of have this baked in respect thing, and I think it just works better if, like that level of respect if it sort of creates an ambiguous situation for the viewer where it's like, well, this is somebody who you want them to save the day when their skills are useful, but they're not necessarily always going to be on the right side of the story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because
she's such a sort of powerful historical figure. And here it just was, I don't know, I didn't like it. I didn't I didn't enjoy where it went. It was very sappy, and it was sappy in a way that, like, I don't mind sappy and sentimental, but it was just like you said, there was just too much sappiness, and it was the first.
It was spread too thin. I mean, if we, because I mean, God, how much time is the episode spent with the Doctor giving a pep talk to Mabley? It's just like she was such an uninteresting character. It's like, okay, you're a little unsure of she goes from being quietly unsure of herself to being slightly less unsure about herself, but still kind of meek and quiet. Yeah. It's like that we spent maybe 10 minutes of the episode on that character arc. I mean, if you just cut that out of the story and added that time to the General Cicero, if that was her title, it's like, okay, yeah, that maybe we would have felt more about that character and her plot line, but Nothing really came together for me in this.
And I thought it was a shame because I thought I liked the med ship. I liked the premise. It was a cool idea. Yeah, and I liked the monster. Like, I thought the monster was kind of a fun, interesting one. I just didn't. It felt like the pacing was off. It felt like I was focused too much on things I didn't really. I really thought this was such a coincidental situation with the creature coming on board. By focusing on all that human stuff, I kept finding myself thinking about the coincidental nature of the creature coming on board. Do you know what I mean? And just like I was somehow getting more distracted. Yeah. It just wasn't working for me. And I think if they had focused more on the dire situation, that it would have worked a little bit better. They spent so much time not caring about the alien in this episode, where they're just kind of talking through their problems, that it's like you're like, it's, oh yeah, there's an alien attacking the ship again, isn't there? There's like no building tension in the episode. Like it would have been interesting, I think, if a lot of the tension had been between Eve, Cicero, and the Doctor. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that would have made a lot of sense, because they both would clearly have relatively equal senses of being competent to deal with the situation tactically. And I think
it would have made sense too, because the Doctor historically is very wary of military figures. So the Doctor meets her, goes, "Oh, you're a great general. Wow, I really admire you." It's like, I mean, the Doctor will befriend military figures, but the Doctor is always a little askance when they, just immediately going, "Wow, that was just a very didn't seem right to me."
I just was not. I don't know. I wanted the episode to work. I really liked the setting of the episode. I loved the look of the ship. I thought that was great. I loved the effects of this episode. This had really good special effects this episode.
Yeah,
I thought, and I thought that there was a lot of stuff going for it. but it just fell apart for me with the. I feel like the episode was telling me, the viewer, I can do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how I felt watching it, and it's not why I watch the show. I don't watch the show to be told I can do it. I watch the show because I want interesting stories and I want interesting characters. And when the characters are just used to give me a pep talk, it's like it kind of,
It wasn't even that for me. I was just, but the biggest crime any Doctor Who episode could commit is to bore me, and I was just bored. I was bored. I mean, even the one people complain about, the most recent episode people love to harp on is the one on the moon, where the moon is an egg episode. Whatever it's called, I can't think of the name now.
I know which one you're talking about, though.
Yeah, and it's like, that's hated, but I was never bored during that episode. It's ridiculous, and every complaint about that episode is true, but I was never bored. But this episode, part of me was wondering early on, like all the like personal conflicts going on. I'm like, are they going for some kind of parody of like a hospital show? Yeah. Is that what they're going for? But instead of feeling like they were kind of doing some riff on a hospital show, I just felt this just feels like a really bad hospital show.
Okay. But, yeah, I mean, I wasn't bored so much as I was just kind of like, I just wasn't interested in how they were handling the characters. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and some of them, like, again, I liked the Eve Cicero character. I thought she was really good. I liked the Durkis Cicero character. I liked their situation.
Yeah,
I didn't, and I even liked what was her consort's name? Was that Yoss?
I can't remember the name of that character.
But he looked like a Star Trek character. He was kind of like a...
He did.
Yeah.
I think that brings up my point. The consort character, they have this Durkis consort conflict thing where they don't like each other. And then immediately at the end, they're like, oh, hey, let's be friends. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why did you even introduce that plot line if you're just going to resolve it in like 5 seconds of just them going, oh, okay, now she's dead, I guess we'll be cool with each other. It was just like that whole plot line, there was no point in it being there because nothing interesting was done with it.
But again, I think the thing of making her dying, it just kind of, I don't know, I didn't think it just went in directions I was kind of like, this isn't really doing it for me.
See, I knew, I was just like, from my point, my feeling about it was the second they brought it up, I'm like, oh, okay, she's got pilot's heart. That means she's going to die piloting this thing at some point.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of the pieces were predictable. I would definitely agree with that. I quite liked the Astos character. He was really impressive for the 5 seconds that he was on the show.
Yeah, actually.
And in fact, he and the Doctor seemed to have like a chemistry right off the bat, and then they like just kill the guy, and so.
Well, if the episode had gone somewhere after that, that would have been cool, introducing this really heroic, confident character and then killing him. But so it's like that could have been cool if they'd had somewhere to go. But every moment after that, I was just like, they just cut, the episode was kind of floundering. But Astos' death, I have to go on about that because later in the episode, they're going on about how, well, this creature doesn't have any evil intent. It's just eating the spaceship, and it's just arbitrary. The fact people are being killed is just, a consequence. But the first thing we see this creature do is lure Astos into an escape pod and shoot it off the ship and blow him up intentionally, which is like, no, that wasn't him feeding himself. That was he was throwing parts of the ship that he could eat into space just so he could kill someone for giggles. It's
I did like the creature though. I have to say I liked sort of this little giddy monster that was roaming the ship. It was also unusual for a Doctor Who monster. It looked different. It looked very different. But I thought it worked, and I really liked one thing I did enjoy about this episode was the Doctor, because I did get a chance to see some of the characteristics of this Doctor that I hadn't really sort of figured out before, and I'm starting to realize like one of the things about her Doctor is she's like super enthusiastic about stuff, like way more than I think even the Matt Smith Doctor, and so there's just some different mannerisms are starting to become noticeable to me, and things that are making this Doctor different than some of the other ones. So I enjoyed it on that level, just sort of seeing the Doctor sort of handle the situation and come up with solutions, and also how she sort of like you said, like when she saw, like, you're right, like when she saw Eve Cicero, there is the military thing which the Doctor would normally be wary of, but it was also something where this Doctor is generally pretty enthusiastic with people in general, and so the conversation sort of had a liveliness to it that I liked, but yeah, I don't know. I thought this episode, just those two things aside, it just really didn't do it for me.
No, and the scene we get very little time with the companions in this one. I thought the scene with Ryan and Yaz was pretty good in this episode, but it's kind of just floating there in the middle of the episode, and it's like that. I feel like if they'd cut back a lot of stuff and spent more time on the plot with him and Yas is the pregnant guy. That's
that guy annoyed me to no end. And it wasn't because he was pregnant. I think if they had a really interesting character who was pregnant, it would have been fine. But that guy reminded me, who's the guy who was on Doctor Who before, who played like the guy who was kind of a loser and he now has a talk show.
Roommate?
Huh?
The guy who was his roommate, or
no, the guy. He might have been his roommate. I should know his name. He's got a late night show now.
Yeah, that's the guy. The episode, The Tenant, where the Doctor gets stranded on Earth and
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But he reminded me of that guy. Just sort of.
Yeah, I can see that.
It was very similar to him, and I just don't like characters like that much. And in this case, it was especially annoying because, like, this is a dire situation. Like, this ship is going down, and this guy is acting like a buffoon the whole time and worried about, like, really minor problems compared to the fact that everybody's going to die if they don't figure out how to resolve the situation. So,
well, I mean, he was about to give birth, which is, somewhat.
No, that I get that, but what I'm saying is he's worried about whether he's going to be a suitable father and all this stuff.
Yeah,
those are not things that you worry about when you have a monster eating a hole through the ship.
I understand. I understand that. Once again, too, they just resolved that with, like, Ryan is just like, hey, I think you'd be a good dad. Yeah, you're right. I'm going to keep the kid. Then it's just like,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was. I did like the birthing scene though, where Graham and what's the other companion's name? Ryan. When they were.
That was one of the highlights of the episode. I thought because once again it's one of the few points in the episode where any of the companions actually got to interact to get with each other and with another person, which I thought was good.
And so we both, I think, agree this was not an episode that either of us really liked.
No.
And so that brings us to the next episode, which is Demons of the Punjab. And in this one, it opens up actually with Yaz and her grandmother. And sort of telling her about, so she drops this bombshell of, I was the first woman married in Pakistan. And instantly you're like, wait a second, what's, like, the first woman married in Pakistan? How is it, I don't know about that. And then she gives her a watch which belonged to her grandfather that's, like, cracked. And then Yaz asks the Doctor to take her back in time to see her grandmother and her grandfather or something to that effect. They end up going back right during the time of the partition, and she learns all of these secrets about her grandmother that she didn't know before, and there's also these mysterious race of aliens who we are told are these assassin species, kind of like the Predator type character at what was his name, Tim Shaw, was that the
oh yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
It's sort of similar. It seemed like a similar type race. We find out there's a lot more to them than that as the episode unfolds. But the basic thrust of the episode is she goes back and she learns that her grandmother's married somebody who's definitely not her grandfather. And that is the and so there's a little bit of a Back to the Future thing going on here, kind of like in the Rosa Parks episode. Not quite as Back to the Future-y, but the threat of annihilating yourself by walking too heavily over your own timeline is present. And so I don't know. What did you think of the episode, number one? Because the plot is fairly straightforward and simple, I think. But
yeah, it's more of a human drama episode than a plot-heavy episode. But I really like this one. I I know this one completely worked for me.
Yeah.
I like it's continuing the trend too of, I feel like for a long time too many of the historical episodes are too busy with the alien stuff and that you don't really get into the history stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like this was another episode that felt pretty grounded in the time it took place.
Yeah.
It took place, and the alien threat was well, there really wasn't an alien threat.
No, it wasn't. And I think some people might watch it and be disappointed for that reason.
A lot
because
of
they'll
people
say,
were.
yeah.
A
But
lot of people
I
were.
thought this was a great episode. I'm really liking the historical episodes, and I feel like, I don't know, they do kind of remind me of those like when I've seen the first Doctor doing the history episodes. They remind me a little bit of those, and I think that
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that this one worked really well because they took the partition is something you hear it, you instantly know. You will, I mean, if you're familiar with it, you instantly know like what's about to unfold around them, and the
Yeah.
gravity of it is immense. But also, if you're not familiar with it, it slowly is revealed to you through the dialogue of the episode, and so either way, you get the sense of the imminent danger that's surrounding them, and it has nothing to do with the alien threat. It's just this political thing that's occurring. When India is being divided into India and Pakistan, and and there's about to be a lot of bloodshed, and Yaz's grandmother is getting caught up in it. Her grandmother is Muslim, and I think she's marrying a Hindu, and
Yes.
the guy's brother basically is not happy with it, and that leads to some serious conflict. And
Yeah.
and I'm going to spoil what happens just so we can actually talk about it. What we end up learning is this race that we think is actually, initially you're led to believe that something bad is going to happen, and it's going to be because of these aliens that are there, that are an assassin race sent to kill somebody, and it's just a question of who are they there to kill. We find out later they're actually a race that, because of their history, they used to be assassins, but now they just are observers of people who die. Like, they go to places where people die and they observe them. Is sort of a religious sort of act to or rite, because of their own history, because their whole planet was destroyed and nobody was there to really officiate the funeral, I guess. So now they go and they officiate over the dead. Which is, it's an interesting race. I think there's been races like this in the past. I feel like it feels vaguely familiar to me for some reason.
It does feel like a familiar thing. Yeah, I can't quite think of another example, but I've definitely encountered this somewhere. But yeah, it worked. I mean, yeah, I mean, because yeah, like I said, a lot of people. Well, I said a lot of people were upset about it, and my feeling is that like I said, I was kind of relieved. I mean, they complained about that with Rosa too, that the guy in that was just, oh, he wasn't a big threat or anything. He was just kind of. But I'm like, that's fine. I mean, I felt, in Rosa, to jump back to that for a second, I felt that was grounded because it was kind of giving the context that racism and prejudice isn't a thing that goes away. It was someone from humanity's future, and people still are upset about that. It's not like, okay, Rosa Parks fixed everything and yay, everything's better. It just kind of, so I felt that actually was grounded in the story.
Well, but also, just to touch on that point, it was even more nuanced because it also brought the other argument into the discussion as well, which was one of the characters was saying, look, nothing's changed, and the other character was saying, no, things have changed. But so it was a very, I thought, a very sort of subtle handling of the history. And here, I think what I liked about it here is that, because in that one, as an American, it's it's kind of interesting because it's an English show, but as an American, it's very hard to sort of look at that story and not like freshly, do you know what I mean? Because we're so familiar with it. But this is one where it's a little easier, I think, because it's in India. It's just, it's an event that people know about, but it's just not it's not like something that you think about as much as Rosa Parks.
I think a lot of Americans probably don't know about it. And like I said, I know it on a fairly abstract level, but I can't say I've studied it in any detail.
No, so. But I mean, it's an event people are aware of. But what I like about this one is this really focuses on the force of history, like history as a force. That one was about individuals. That was about, I mean, they obviously got into the historical forces at work as well, but it was about individuals too. And this one is about individuals that are at the mercy of the force of history. And that
Yeah.
was more interesting to me because in this situation, the brother is kind of a bad guy, but not really. He's not really like the villain. Do you know what I mean? He does something really bad, but it's because he's caught up in this historical event that is gonna consume everybody. I mean, like so it was just kind of more intriguing on that front for me. I think this is one of the better, maybe the best historical episode I've seen in a long time on the show. And I like the Rose episode. I thought that was a great episode. But this one, I think maybe because they grounded it with one of the companions' own stories, it had more of an effect. And they also weren't, and also it wasn't like Gandhi showed up or anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it
was just normal people. Yeah. Normal people caught up in this really bad situation.
Because for a while I thought they were going to tie it into the Gandhi thing, but then I realized that they weren't, and it was good that they didn't. And I think, again, as much as the Rosa Parks story worked, you still sort of had that thing of, well, there's this historical figure, Rosa, that they're dealing with, and that's always going to take you out just a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Just because it's it's a historical figure. And so this enabled it to just be about regular people who I had to get introduced to all of them. They weren't people that I already had ideas about. So when I met, what was the name of the guy who was her first husband who died? Was it Prem?
Prem, yeah.
So when you're introduced to Prem, it was like I had to find out about him. Do you know what I mean? I had to, and so it was just, I think it works better generally for this kind of story to have not as many intrusions from historical figures. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do the Rosa type episode, because that was a good episode. And I'm not saying that you never want to have like a Van Gogh type episode or something like that. It's just that it's a good thing they didn't do it again. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's good to have some variety. I mean, the Pompeii episode, we mainly are just dealing with this Roman family, which technically that was another stunt, because that family is the family from British Latin textbooks. But it's still different. That still makes it different than being a historical figures that you have involved. But yeah, it would, if they'd made these historical people, it would have changed the whole equation of it. Because one thing by having it just be normal people is that when it's Rosa Parks, there's the whole thing of, oh, the story has to happen this way, and we have to make sure the story happens this way, or history's going to fly off. Whereas with this, anything could have happened, to an extent. It's I mean, it opens up things in a way. It gives an uncertainty that you don't get when you have historical figures involved.
And also we got to learn more about Yaz, which I thought was good. She, her background is getting more clear, and I think that we also, again, we got to see more of the Doctor and more of like what this Doctor is about, and so I mean, I think at this point we're both sort of sold on the Doctor. I don't think that they're really going to be able to do anything at this stage that would derail the Doctor for us, unless they do something wild. I mean, they'd really have to go overboard at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting we had these two episodes as one podcast, because it's like, my problem with the previous one is it had all these melodramatic stories going on, and I felt really nothing about any of them because they were so underdeveloped. Whereas I would say this second one, I was genuinely moved by this episode. It was very, very affecting. Well, and this is the director who directed the first episode this season, so maybe that's something to do with it. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So they are just kind of an exercise in contrasts. And I mean, and it's funny because Tsuranga Conundrum, I was bored by it, but there was so much stuff going on in that episode. And Demons of the Punjab it's a pretty slow moving episode to an extent, but I was never bored. I was just really caught up in the characters and the world and the
It's
setting, and it all felt very real to me.
it's literally set up on a farm, which is like the most boring location you could that's like what killed season 2 of The Walking Dead. Like, we're stuck on this farm for however many episodes is in a season this year, and
Yeah.
I think I was a little nervous about the farm setup, especially because you didn't get a glimpse of anything except the house they lived in. There was no real other human structures that I noticed, except for the alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
So it was very rural and very a setting that could lend itself easily to boredom if they don't handle it properly. And I thought it was handled fine. I was like you. I was not bored. I think it was a much more successful episode than the Tsuranga Conundrum. And I was very happy it was, because the Tsuranga Conundrum really deflated my enthusiasm for the season.
Yeah.
I got like a feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I was like, well, I guess this is maybe when the season turns south. But Demons of the Punjab kind of brought it back up for me. So I was pleasantly surprised by it. And also, I was nervous because once I understood the premise, I was like, "Ooh, this could be bad." Do you know what I mean? Like history is like they got it right with Rosa, but maybe they're gonna drop the ball.
Maybe this is the one where they dropped the ball,
Yeah.
but they're 2 for 2 on their on their historical episodes now. So that's great. That's an impressive feat for the season. Even if the rest of the season somehow totally stinks, getting in 2 good historical episodes is that puts it in the book.
What I like too is that they set this up on this farm, and you never really see all the violence going on over the partition, but you keep hearing about it, and it's sort of that Babylon 5 effect where you're imagining it, and it's making it all that much more real. And then it's building up to these guys showing up in the last scene. Do you know what I mean? So like you get this sense of this rising violence in the region that's presumably coming closer and closer and closer to them. And then when it finally does, it works it just you instantly believe it. You don't it didn't feel because it wasn't that many guys. It was like a posse of like 6 or 7 guys, and sometimes a posse of 6 or 7 people for something this epic can feel very diminished. Do you know what I mean? But here it worked.
Well, it worked too because as Prem says when he addresses them, it's like, "Hey, you're my neighbors, you're my friends."
Yeah.
I mean, right? 100 guys would have been an army, and it would have deflated the situation almost, because it just would have been this vast thing. But it's just a bunch of people from the area that came around to make sure everything is in line, and which is a lot more disturbing.
And the guy who played Prem did a really good job, I thought. He was, I think, my favorite actor in the episode.
Shane Zaza, if I'm pronouncing that right.
I feel like I've seen him in other things too.
I don't know, Spooks, Waterloo Road, Happy Valley. I don't know if you've seen any of those. Oh, he was in a Black Mirror episode. No, Nosedive. I have seen that episode.
He was in the Da Vinci Code. Maybe that's where I recognize him from.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm just looking at his television work. I skipped past his film stuff.
Let me see. Yeah, I don't know what that must be it, because I'm not really seeing anything else that would have that I would have really been familiar with. But I thought he was good. I thought that what was the woman who played her nanny?
Well, there's 2. We have Nanny Umbreen was Lena Dhingra, and Mita Suman was the young version.
Okay, I thought the young version did a really good job.
I thought they both did.
No, they did, but
the young one had a lot more heavy work to carry.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, the older one played a grandmother. Do you know what I mean? And the younger one, I thought there was a much more robust role. But yeah, I think that is something I do have to say. The acting, even in the previous episode where I was annoyed by some things, the acting was all good. And I think that in this episode, the acting really was good. And I think it really boiled down to Prem and to Umbreen. I guess
Yeah.
Manish too. Manish was kind of an important character, but you're supposed to dislike Manish, and so he was kind
Yeah,
of
when a character is annoying you, it can be a little harder to say that person was doing a great performance, but he was because he nailed the part he was playing there.
and
And
oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean this was definitely an episode that's going to live or die by how good the acting is. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I was really pleased with this one. This is a really good episode. I didn't have any real complaints about it, and I was pleasantly surprised. Because when I knew they were going into India, I was sort of and I saw the title Demons of the Punjab. I was picturing something that really I didn't want to see. Do you know what I mean? Like I was imagining it was going to be. Like, I don't know, more Indiana Jones type or something like that, or more.
Oh yeah, going to the
like
Temple of Doom direction would have been bad.
But you know what I mean. Just like it just felt like it was going to be a little on the goofier side, maybe.
Yeah, the title is a well, one of those titles when you first hear it, it sounds really pulpy, but
Yeah.
when you've seen the episode, it's like. It's got a different connotation when you think of it as being these dark things that happened in history. So it's a title that changes on you after watching it.
No, and that's what worked because it was sort of like I was kind of like it starts out. I was like, well, I don't know if I want to go to India. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like, okay, we're gonna like this is like
we're actually going to India. We're not going to cartoon India.
No, it was just that I didn't expect them to go to the partition. That really surprised me.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to go and it was going to be like an adventure involving like some kind of weird cult or something. You know what I mean? Just by the name, like it was, and it just really surprised me by making it about the partition. You know, it was a real interesting episode.
Yeah.
And so again, I thought that episode was fine. I thought the episode before was pretty terrible. I don't think there's any way to put it otherwise. It was not a good episode. But every season has those episodes from time to time. I think even last year there was one that I think we both didn't like, if I recall.
This season is still definitely well within the acceptable range for a Doctor Who season at the moment.
So
tomorrow night we get to watch. Well, I don't know when you're listening to this, but Kerblam,
which I'm a little bit. The title is not winning me over. I also noticed it's the same director that did the Tsuranga Conundrum. So depending on whether that fault was the fault of Chris Chibnall or the director,
it was a pretty bad screenplay.
Okay.
Script for Tsuranga Conundrum, I think. So I don't know if we can blame the director for that. So we'll see if Pete McTee can give her something better to work with.
We'll remain optimistic. I'm really looking forward to the Witchfinders. I'm very curious about what that one is, and
that's interesting.
And I have no idea what the finale is. It looks like we have It Takes You Away and the Battle of Ranskor of Kolos.
Yeah.
Both those titles mean nothing to me.
Which is kind of good, actually. I'm kind of enjoying the lack of plot arc that's been dominating the season or anything. There's been there's been a bit of continuity, but there isn't some looming big thing that's going to happen at the end of the season.
I'm telling you, the Tim Shaw and what was the race that we saw in tonight's episode or in the Demons of Punjab episode? What were they called?
Oh boy, let's see. So you're predicting they're both going to be part of the finale?
They're too similar to not be connected in my mind. Way too
similar. I don't know because maybe.
Look, one of them is like a predator alien race, right? That goes to planets and like hunts things to kill them. One of them used to be an assassination race that did kind of the same thing, but now they go to planets to observe the dead. Do you know what I mean? It just seems like inevitable that those two races are going to meet. Do you know what I mean?
It could be.
They seem perfectly paired. Like they seem like opposite sides of a coin.
We'll see if that comes together. I'm not sure. Early on, I kind of felt like, the guy from the Ghost Monument episode, because he just seemed like somebody that kind of deserved some kind of comeuppance for the whole thing. I thought we were going to go back to him, but it's been so long now that I don't know. I think I was wrong in my call there. So I
Okay.
honestly have no clue where we're going at the end of the season. But
And we're
yeah, I
also
mean, you're right. You're right. Tim Shaw's race has been mentioned in 2 episodes, so I wouldn't be surprised if they pop up at least a third time.
yeah, I know. We'll see what happens with them. But I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like they're going somewhere with that. I feel like we haven't gotten enough classic monsters though. That's like my only.
There won't be any classic monsters this season.
Okay, okay. So I think I can see why they're doing it. Hopefully that they don't. I hope they don't stick with that for the duration of Jodie Whittaker as the doctor, because I think that it's like I get what they're worried about, because they kind of went overboard. Like, we got way too many Dalek episodes, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, it still serves the show well to occasionally call back to things from the past. Just don't go nuts like they did in like the last 2 seasons or whatever. Like, I don't need like a Cyberman Dalek, pattern. But I wouldn't mind getting, I don't know, something coming back from earlier episodes. But yeah, so, and also I guess we're not getting a Christmas episode, we're getting a New Year's episode, right? Is that the
We are getting a New Year's. Yep, they have wisely, in my opinion, decided. We've kind of run every Doctor Christmas connection we can into the ground. So rather than trying to do an episode every year where we ham-fistedly work a Doctor Who plot and Christmas together, we're just going to do it at New Year's. So
now, is that going to force them to do the same thing with New Year's though, or is New Year's less specific somehow, so it's not as?
I think it's less specific. In fact, if anything else, at least New Year's is a time-related holiday.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's more topical. So if they do decide to make it something time-related, I think at least it's a holiday where everyone spends the key moment staring at a clock. So
okay, all right. So you might have sold me on that one. All right, so we're gonna head out. We got another episode of Doctor Who to watch tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be able to get onto a good schedule this week and cover it, depending on what's going on with everybody. And I also am going to be doing, I think, Heroes Shed No Tears on Monday for a Wuxia workshop, and then after that, we're going to be trying to do the Chinese ghost story movie, and then next Friday we'll see what we have for Wuxia Weekend. So until then, we will talk to you later. Your